Hello, this is Neil from iPaintGirls.com, and I got a request from AZ Wraith PL, and I like it. I think it's a good idea. And to do an example of like a more detailed face or a more defined structured face with a lot more muscles on it, and based on the example he gave, I think I know what he wants. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that in this tutorial. Right, so getting started, what we'll do is just kind of sketch out a rough face shape, which is just going to be like a circle with something like this on it. And then somewhere, around halfway mark between that whole shape, that's where we're going to set our eyes at. Just remember that eyes are approximately an eye apart, so I don't see any reason to go back into the detailed face structure. I already have a video series on that shows how to do detailed structure. So just remember there's this triangle where the middle of the eyes are down here. And that's about where the nose will be. Or if you do like a circle and then this shape, the bottom of the nose fits right about here. It's really close to the eyes. It's a lot closer than it might appear at first. And if you want to make the face a little bit longer, you can, and you can extend that nose down a little bit farther. It's up to you how long the face is going to be. There's different faces. One that has slightly longer noses and one that don't, and the mouth, fits somewhere in there. And you can actually do the middle of the lips instead of that way the top lip and the bottom lip would fit like that. I like to then just put a line for the bottom lip, that way I know kind of about where the chin's going to be. Jaw comes down to about the lip area, and you'd have ears in this area and rest of the head like so. And depending on how high we make that widow's peak in this hairline, we can do different things. Right, so now it's a matter of just drawing the actual face itself. To get to this point though, where you can just draw, from your mind, a face from your mind without, thinking about it really, and to do it quickly, you have to just draw a lot of faces, a lot of structured faces first. And that means to, do all the boring stuff with the lines and everything and make sure you put everything properly. Basically follow my face structure video and just do it over and over again. And eventually these measurements will all just come out in your head. You'll just know about a half eye from the side of the head, about an eye distance in the middle and things like that. All that will just kind of come naturally. And this eye is still too big, so I'm just trying to shape it here. And then I'll come in with a better shape. Now I'm going to just take my airbrush and just kind of fade all that away so I can draw on top of it. Okay, so when we're doing a detailed face, it's really just knowing the muscle structures. And there's different structures you can memorize. And it's not that difficult, I don't think. There's this muscle here. Depending on the person, it can, get quite big. And it's part of the muscle and the bone, I guess. And it kind of, they're kind of shaped like that. When you're drawing things like goblins or older, mean, evil people, you tend to really exaggerate these muscles. And then there's the little muscles in between here that get wrinkled up when a person's mad or whatever. And you can kind of give them that kind of, pinched look to where they always kind of look mad. And then the nose, the bridge of the nose kind of starts there. And you can add bumps to the nose if you want. It depends what kind of character you're drawing. And I'm not actually going to draw an actual character here. It might kind of resemble, but I'm not going to do it to be an actual character because I don't want to have my videos limited for copyrights or something. Right, so we'll go ahead and give him his eyes in here. Oops. We'll give his eye shape. We'll have it kind of closed. And we'll kind of come out like that. Right, so I'm not really going to keep that look there. I'm just showing you where the muscles will be. Then there's these kind of parts where the forehead is. And this kind of comes up right here and right here. There's this kind of like line. You can imagine this line here. And that kind of just separates the forehead plane, this top forehead plane, from the side plane. So you can put shadow on both sides like that. So just remember, if you remember that structure there for the upper forehead, then you're pretty good go, and you'll be able to do from from your mind. You'll be able to draw structured faces. Then remember, there's this line that comes here, and this is the cheekbone. And depending on the person, they can have high cheekbones or lower cheekbones. And then this follows, the skull structure. So you imagine the skull structure, kind of comes down here. You'd have all the teeth and the bottom teeth, right, for the skull structure. So that's part of the skull structure. Depends how thin the person is. And depending on the face structure too, they might have lines right here and how old they are. And then and if they're older, they'll have this other muscle that comes on top of here, and it kind of comes like this. It usually kind of goes into the cheekbone though, but sometimes you'll have an extra line there if they're really old. But that typically doesn't look all that cool, so we won't put that line in. And this kind of comes around the mouth like that, and then sometimes you'll have this kind of bloated out part here like this. I kind of have these. Just those, I don't have the lines up there. Some younger guys too really have these defined muscles right here that stick out. Right, so for guys, you don't really draw an upper lip. I mean, you can, but typically you don't. In comic books, draw an upper lip on guys. So just kind of have that part of the lip. Then you have this under part, which is usually shadow under this under part of the lip here, like so. And you might want to, maybe shadow the lip a little bit too. And now you got to decide what kind of chin and jaw and everything you want. So I'm going to bring the jaw down to about here. That's when you start curving that line in. In his chin, I'm going to have his chin kind of follow this muscle here. And I'm going to give him kind of a big chin, not too big though. We'll kind of bring it, oops, like that, and then connect. And then if you know where facial muscles and stuff are, you can add those in, or not facial, excuse me, facial hair. And this right here is pretty much the muscles you need to memorize for the face, or detailed faces. And then, depending on whether you want to be bald or not and how big you want his head to be, you can really exaggerate it. So if you really wanted to give him a fatty widow's peak, you can do that. Have his hair all kind of come in there. Like that, and then you can have his hair. I'm not probably getting to where it looks too much like the person that the guy recommended. The person who recommended this tutorial knows who this is starting to look like now. I'm just kind of, right, so there we go. Give him kind of darkness under his eyes like so. Since his bottom lid is the one that, is drooping down, it always covers the top of the eye. So you only see part of the eye. Okay, now we can kind of zoom in. You can add some little, details and stuff. And all this part here now, you define with shading pretty much. You wouldn't really define with line work so much. And there might be a little bit of line work in there, but for the most part, you define it with shading. Kind of add just a little bit of shading in here like that. It's unfortunate, like with the tablet, it's really hard to, just kind of shade the way I want to. You have to get really close to really kind of get that shading going on. But an easy way to do it is actually you can make a new layer, and then on that new layer just put tone down. I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a second. Because it kind of comes in handy for quick sketches and stuff. Let's go ahead and just put some line work for here though. I'll go ahead and erase this other part, that way he has that really high forehead. Something like so, and then you can have the head shading in here. Right, so really just comes down to those structures. That's it. I mean, that's really all you have to memorize. There's not much more to it. You just memorize that you have these shapes here on top of the eyebrows. They can be different shapes. They can be bigger or shorter. It just depends on the head you're doing. Then you have the cheekbones. You have the lines here, or you don't have to have these lines. You could just have, let's go ahead and bring his mouth down here to these little parts. You could just have these parts kind of coming out a little bit like that with the part there. I should probably totally erase these lines here though. So you could just have it like that, which makes them look younger, as you can see. Just doing that little thing, you know, drops some years off the character. And then you can add little things here. You can maybe add some detail for kind of like, you're kind of hinting at his upper lip there a little bit, and you can maybe even hint at it a little bit more if you wanted to by drawing thin lines, or do it with your shade work. You can also you know, just add part of the lines that start coming here toward the nose if you wanted to, or you can do the whole thing's coming down, or you can just kind of do partly here, where you can just see, you can just kind of see part of it starting to show. But just remember that you have those areas that you memorize for doing detailed faces. You can also imagine that you want, not imagine, but each part of the face also is, I don't have enough time to go into this, but if you first imagine the big structure of the head, and you know that, okay, well, the big structure of the head is kind of, you know, an oval shape, and it kind of, you know, goes like that, and you have the light part of it, right? Like so. And so that's the larger structure. Then on top of that, you have other structures, like you have where the, you know where the eyes will go in here, and then you have these structures here. And these you would shade separately on top of that structure. They receive their own lighting based on the same thing. So you'd have, you know, those structures like that. And you'd have dark where the eyes would be. And the nose is its own structure. And if you imagine it that way, then you can, you know, it's easier to paint the whole thing. And then you know that you have your cheeks, you know, which might receive a little bit of light depending on how high they are. Then you'd have the shadow that comes down, and then you'd have your mouth somewhere in there, and or somewhere around there. Then you have, you know, the nose, and so forth. And imagine building shapes on top of that sphere, and you can kind of, you know, color it that way. Even if you already have the line drawing out, you can still color it that way. Hopefully that made sense. It's like you're shading shapes on top of shapes. So, right. So that's pretty much it. He's all done. And if I wanted to, I could, you know, start shading, and I can use that method I just showed you, where you first have the sphere, and I'm going to kind of give lighting on both sides, because that's the kind of lighting system I had there. And then you would go in and shade each individual shape on top of that. You know that the lighting is kind of coming from the top, so you'd have a little bit of shading in here. That part would receive shading, and that part would receive shading under the eyes, under here, just a little bit up there, and a little bit around there. All that would be more shaded in. The chin piece down here, it's separate, so it's like a whole separate piece there, and it has a little bit of shading after the lip, and the lip have a little bit of shading, and you'll have a little bit of shading under the nose, and this two pieces are treated as separate things, and they receive their own light like that. You have your cheek lighting, then you have that separate lighting that comes in there and there, kind of highlights that, and so forth. So that's just like a really quick thing because I ran out of time, but you get the idea. All right, so hopefully this helps you when drawing detailed faces or structure to faces, and just remember the main parts, main muscle groups, and you'll be fine when you're drawing detailed faces. And you can, scrunch it, make it more round, make it whatever shape it is you want the character to be, and those muscles always are going to be where they should be, above the eyes, and around the mouth and so forth. All right, thank you for watching. Let me know what you want to see next. Leave comments for tutorial request.